Hey guys, welcome back to Bixby's Beer Review. So wonderful to see you here again. A little programming note before we get started with today's beer. Next week, I'm going to be on my first of my annual sojourns down to the Sunshine State. Going to be checking out a lot of beers while I'm down there. Going to see what the hottest new things coming off the canning lines are down there. Going to check in on some of the old heads too. Going to see what I can get maybe from Cigar City or Jay Wakefield, some of my favorites. If you want to see what I'm drinking and see what I'm thinking, check me out on Untappd or hit up that Instagram. I'll have some stories and some reels there. But with that said, let's get into today's beer from the folks at Schilling Beer Co. up in Littleton, New Hampshire, one of my very favorite lager breweries. We have their Landbier Dunkel. Now they have a series of Landbiers. This, as the name implies, is their dark one. And so before we crack it open, we're talking a little bit about this style because I think it really is a style that gets right at what I love about beer and what the BBR is all about. As the name implies, Landbier is a sort of a German catch-all term for the local lager or the local beer that a lot of breweries there in Germany have, especially breweries in the Franconia region, where it's not necessarily any one particular approach. Some are light, some are dark, but it's just sort of the rustic lager that each little brewery makes. And we're all about finding the local character wherever you are in the beers that you drink. So this style was, of course, very appealing to me. So I know they've done some other ones. They've done an amber one. I think they've done a lighter one too. But this is the first one I've been able to get my hands on. So I'm very excited to check it out. So let's crack it open. Take a look. So I've been trying to do a little research on the Landbier phenomenon, and I couldn't get too much on it, but from what I've read, it seems a lot sort of like Belgian farmhouse ales, where some common characteristics, but a lot of ranges of expression reflecting local traditions and interests. As you all know, I'll be in Belgium next month, and of course, if you're following us on Instagram and Untappd, you're going to get a lot of reviews of some very hard to find beers then. But that's for then. For now, let's talk about this beautiful looking Dunkel beer. As its name implies, it is quite dark, by no means opaque. You can see a little bit of light getting through there, some very nice ruby highlights at the bottom, but generally in the sort of brown malt area. You can also see very rich, fluffy, and persistent head on top. Looking a little harder to tell with dark beers, but I'm seeing a healthy level of carbonation, it looks like, in there. So it's about what we might have thought just by looking at the name. So let's go ahead, give it a smell. A very rich malt forward aroma on this one. I'm already starting to think of this in comparison to a lot of the other dark lagers that we've tried and that I've tried. And in particular, a lot of the lagers that Schilling does. If you guys have followed, especially on Instagram, I love Schilling. One of the things that I love about what they're doing is they dig deeper into Czech brewing tradition, into all the subtle gradations and sub-styles among Czech lagers, and more so than any other brewery that I know. And so when I smell this beer, I certainly get a lot of a darker, kind of toasty, almost nutty malt aroma. What I don't get is nearly as much lager yeast character as I get from a lot of their other beers. It's much more malt forward, almost like an ale. I would also say that there's less lager yeast character here. It doesn't have quite that clean, snappy finish that you get from, say, dark Czech lagers. I will say it almost has the aroma of an ale, where it just finishes a little bit smoother and a little bit more neutral. So already an interesting beer. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Very delicious, sessionable, malt forward beer. Again, to contrast it to some of the other lagers that we've had, the first thing I notice is that it's a very light bodied beer. It doesn't have an intense carbonation. It's not as carbonated as, say, a Pilsner. A little more medium carbonation, but very light, very clean drinking, very easy to drink. The malt flavors are medium light. It's not as assertive on the flavor spectrum. I wouldn't say it's nearly, say, like an alt beer where you're getting both big malt and sort of big hop flavor. It's much more restrained, slightly nutty, slightly brown bready, just a little bit toasty. And then very little hop character in it. So I wouldn't say that there's much in the way of bitterness or hop flavor. So it ends up to me in sort of the place that a lot of Czech lagers do that aren't explicitly Bohemian Pilsners, where the carbonation and maybe even some of the hoppiness is dialed back. It gets me to a place of just a very delicious, sessionable beer. And so I would say of all the dark beers we've tried, this one, might now be sort of leading the pack in terms of summer beers that I want to have during the summer that still bring a little bit more malt heft, even more so than maybe an English style porter or something else that's in the 3 or the 4% ABV. Because this one right here, only 4.2%, so very easy drinking, but a very delicious beer, and one that I'd like to think shows off the local character of New Hampshire's Schilling Beer Co. I'd love to see other breweries try this. You guys maybe have noticed I'm using my Wheatland Spring glass here. I tried to think of the one brewery that sort of embodies this concept to the fullest in my area, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Wheatland Spring, they grow a lot of their own grains and use a lot of their own ingredients in their beers. And so I'd love to see other breweries trying this, because it's an interesting look at just sort of, what's the day-to-day lager that you want to drink as the brewer, that you want to have on hand. So very much enjoyed checking this one out from Schilling. Hopefully I can find some more examples of this style, and hopefully you'll join me here on the next BBR. But until then, bye now.